All right, welcome everyone to our February GBM. Very excited for this GBM. It'll be a guest speaker presentation with John Hedtke, captive versus freelance. Before we get into that, though, we have some announcements. Then I'll introduce John and he'll get into his presentation. So a few quick announcements. Our March general body meeting has not been announced, but it will be soon, so stay posted. We have a lot of good ideas in the works for that, and then the April general body meeting. Um, Next, so for those of you who don't know, I believe it's been 3 weeks. SCC, the Society for Technical Communication, declared that it was going to file for bankruptcy. So because of that, the national organization, and of course, along with it, the Florida chapter of STC has been completely dissolved. It is no longer in existence in any way, shape, or form, which we, at FTC, are sad about that since we had great partnerships with especially the SCC Florida chapter, but also SCC people all around the nation. However, there are some people who were formerly with SCC, the SCC Florida chapter, who have made kind of an informal, loose little community. So it's called the Sunshine State Scriveners. They are beginning bi-weekly meetups. The first one actually is tomorrow at 7:30. So you can join then. To my understanding, the meetups are more casual, just to talk about tech comm, ways to move forward, that sort of thing. If you're interested in how they are doing so, you can join that meetup. They also have a Discord, so I will put that in the chat now. And that Discord is also where you can get the information to join that meetup tomorrow if you're interested. And if you have any questions, you can also contact us and we can get you the information you want. So with that, that's all the announcements. So I'll introduce John Hedtke. He did a great presentation with us last April. But if you don't remember, he has over 30 years experience as a writer and documentation manager. He has written and developed documentation and books for many leading software products. He's also a big publisher, 27 books and 200 magazine articles on technical subjects. You can find more on his website, hedke.com. He also does numerous radio and magazine interviews and frequently travels to do keynotes, lectures, and guest appearances at conferences and seminars. He is a fellow of the Society for Technical Communication, even though the
Even
society.
though it's folded, we're still fellows.
Yes, exactly. That designation still definitely stands. So when he's not doing all of the things I just mentioned, he plays banjo and guitar, and he lives near Tacoma, Washington, with his wife Marilyn. So with that, I will stop my share, let John share, and let him take it away.
All right. Give me one moment because I had a printing error. I'm going to go grab my notes off the printer and I'll be right back.
Sounds good. And then in the FTC Discord earlier today, um I uploaded the handout that John gave us for tonight, but then I'm also putting it in the chat right now. So you can use that to follow along, take notes, all of
Sorry,
that.
it's going to be a minute. That's the printer error. It's not, hang on. It's doing things. Let me say in advance, I have been having a driver problem on my computer. If it craps out, it'll blue screen on me randomly. And if so, I will be back very, very quickly. Um, so before I start the slides, let's see. If I go share, if I do that, I think it will work. So we're going to talk today, I will tell you, about the differences between being freelance versus being captive and how to choose between the two of them. So we're going to talk about a couple of things in this presentation. We're going to say what is a captive, what is a freelancer, the advantages and disadvantages of freelancing, and the advantages and disadvantages of captivity, and how to try freelancing if you're new to it. Now, a captive is someone who's a wage slave. Um, you go to work for a company, you do something, you come home, they usually give you business cards. On the other hand, a freelancer or freelance, both are correct, is someone who's working at a job on a temporary contractual basis, also on or off site. There are many distinctions of being a freelancer. There's a contractor, consultant, freelance, temporary worker, and so on. These are vaguely legalistic and pretty arbitrary distinctions, and nobody agrees on what the definitions are. The bottom line in being freelance is that you're usually paid by the hour or the project, and you have usually a known temporary or finite job term, and that's all that matters. Let me see if the printer is done. It is, huzzah. Okay, with that, now that the printer is done and I have the working printed script, that always do better than notes, you know? I'm going to share the slides. All right, I click, let's see, I click share. Hang on, where is my Zoom screen anyway? Talk amongst yourselves. Let's see, share, there we go. Share everything, I think. Hang on, that screen. Baby, oh baby, oh no, I want this screen actually, because now I find my slides. I go poof, and you should see a single slide that says freelance versus captive. Yes?
We don't see anything. There's nothing.
Well, damn it all to hell anyway. Just a sec. Let's see. I told it I wanted to share. How about now?
Now it's going. It's working.
Good. Okay. Take that. Technology is irritating. Okay. So here's me. We can skip that. We've already actually talked about what we're going to be talking about. Don't worry about that. Okay. And we've talked a little about definitions. Now, why does any of this matter? When I say a job's a job, I mean it. It's like, I've got a contract job right now. Last year, I had this contract job. I also had a full-time job. I also had another contract job. So, work is work, right? Does it matter? Well, there are a number of differences in the way, excuse me, in the way people will feel about things. And you can be happy with either, but some people prefer one over the other very strongly. So I've done both I've been in this silly business for over 40 years. Both options, both captive and freelance, have their advantages and their disadvantages. But it's a personal decision. For you to be happy, you need to make an informed decision about what makes you happy, what drives you best, and what you want to do and why. You are not going to be profitable if you're not happy. So we're going to look at each type of work in detail, and you'll know more about each and what you might prefer. Now, there is a principle I want you to remember. Nothing has value if you don't know what you want. And there's a corollary. If you don't ask for what you want, you'll probably not get it. So we're going to start skimming. There we go. We're going to start with freelancing. There's a lot of good reasons to freelance. The first of which is money. When you're freelance, you are generally getting paid more than captives. Not always, but frequently. People need your expertise. They need it on a temporary basis, and they will pay for that. I am looking at a couple of 2, 3 jobs right now that may be paying me as much as 85 bucks an hour. This is not chopped chicken liver in my book. That's a lot of money. I do not expect right now in this market to be getting anywhere near that much money for a similar writing job anywhere. So there's money to be made. You can, to a large extent, set your own hours. Um, when you're freelancing, you are very, very frequently working at home. Now, this is when I first wrote that line in 2013, I think it was. Um, Working remotely for captives was not a common thing. That is, of course, no longer the case. There is a strong return to office push, and Trump is trying to push much harder for return to office for reasons known only to him. Um, but there's still a lot of people working at home. If we have a serious flu outbreak this year, people will be working at home again, no question. But when you're freelancing, you're almost always working at home. And as a result, you can, to an extent, set your own hours to meet your own life's requirement. Like we all know, when you're working at home, if you don't have to commute, love that. If you've got an appointment in the morning, you can run and then get to work. Your boss is not likely to complain. You can also, to some extent, set your own days. You can schedule a vacation or a 3-day weekend whenever you like. You can also announce, I won't be in on Monday and Tuesday of next week as I have a conference I'll be speaking at or something. Um, uh, as I say, working at home is good. You get to save money on car expenses. If you've got kids, working at home provides real value for being able to keep half an eye on them. You can work to an extent on projects that you like. As a freelancer, you have considerable control over your own destiny. You can go focus on the projects that you want to work on, the type of work. If you don't like working on a particular type of product or something like that, you can just say no or not even go after that kind of work. There are some tax advantages, not as many as there used to be about 5, 10 years ago, but there are still some tax advantages. Despite the IRS and Congress's attempts to squeeze freelancers out of existence, you can take tax deductions for maintaining a home office, computers, software related to your business. That is office furniture, supplies, reference books, subscriptions, business-related travel, conventions in your field, magazines, professional organizations, your insurance, legal fees, and all sorts of other things. There is no dress code. And I'm not talking about just skipping wearing a tie or not putting on nylons here. No dress code means you don't have to shave, put on makeup, or wear clothes at all. I have written many portions of manuals and books while dressed in my favorite green terry cloth bathrobe. The grass is greener. Let me explain that. Working freelance can give you far more professional experience than working at a full-time job somewhere. In a 6-year period, for example, when I was starting out, I did 30 different manuals for a dozen different companies. And I learned an awful lot about the industry I work in. And I had a chance to try out all kinds of environments, all kinds of management styles, all kinds of product categories. And I got to hone my skills by rubbing shoulders with a lot of different writers. And at the end of all of that, I knew a lot better what to look for and what I wanted in a job. You have some control of your environment. there are other advantages to working at home, like you can have the cats around. You can raid the refrigerator when you want to. You can have a really good sound system. You can have cable TV in the office. It's a legitimate business expense for some of us. Um, I have a huge library of movies, and so I'm the type of person who likes background noise. For me, it's like I tell the ADHD demons in my head, go watch cartoons, don't bug me, I'm writing, and they do. I actually have a huge bunch of cartoons too. I just recently bought the entire Looney Tunes collection, so that's on the computer, things like that. Um, you can avoid office politics. When you're freelance, you don't have to get involved in the company politics if you don't want to. In fact, it's a good idea not to get involved as a general rule, because you can be perceived as a troublemaker. So you can simply smile seraphically and say, I'm a contractor. I don't have an opinion on this. Or it'd be inappropriate for me to venture an opinion because I don't have the complete picture. You can also capitalize off corporate misfortunes. Schadenfreude is not merely an emotional experience. You can also benefit from corporate downsizing by picking up skilled employees to farm out yourselves, um, or as well as business opportunities when the functions of a whole department are outsourced by a company. You know that fairly soon they're going to be going, wait, we need people, and they will hire contractors. All right, this is a wonderful set of advantages. I mean, it paints a really rosy picture of life, freedom and money, a chance to do what you want, and to make incredibly good coffee for yourself, all rolled up in a package. Why don't we all run out and start freelancing? Well, there are minuses involved. First and foremost is you can bloody well starve to death. Just because you're a qualified writer doesn't mean you'll find work when you want it. When I first started freelancing, which was 1986, I had one great contract, and then I got a second contract almost immediately thereafter. And then I spent much of 1987 completely unemployed and looking for work. It happens. I had to eat up my savings. Um, I it was a challenge. My finances were not good as a result, and it took me a couple of years to recover. Um, there are no benefits save what you pay for yourself. Um, the obvious ones include vacations and holidays, sick leave, retirement funds, and insurance. But the not so obvious ones are all those things that you get tax advantages for, like spending for your phone service, copies, office supplies, computer hardware and software, and so on. And you will pay for your own coffee if you're working at home. Now, for me, that's okay. I buy this amazing coffee called Dead Man's Reach, which is a nautical cove off of the shore south of Anchorage, and it's this beautiful dark roast coffee. And I just bought a year's supply before the tariffs make it shoot through the roof, and it's lovely, lovely stuff. But I paid for it. I for a year's supply of coffee for the two of us, which was 60 pounds. I spent $785, and I had to pay for that. Every day is a working day. And what I mean by that, when you get into freelancing and you're billing usually by the hour, you'll discover yourself thinking, yeah, I could work another hour. I could bill another hour. I could make another hour's worth of money. And then this will extend frequently, particularly at the start, into workaholism. Um, every hour, you'll start thinking every hour could be a billable hour, so why not this one too? You have to draw limits somewhere, or the rest of your life is going to suffer. And I will tell you about how that works in a little bit. You'll spend a lot of time marketing yourself. Um, you have to spend time marketing yourself. You can't just sit there and be the world's greatest writer. You have to tell people somehow that you're the world's greatest writer and get your name out there. How much time do you spend do that? Successful freelancers often spend 15 to 20 hours, that's as much as I recommend, but at least 5 every single week. Marketing yourself, getting you, your services, your company out there, or even just you spending time to remain current and competitive. You need to be ready to learn tools, new ideas, things like that. Um, excuse me. AI. I loathe AI for a number of reasons, but it's important to know about it. Sorry. Um, data, um, marketing itself, how to create business plans, lots and lots of skills. You can rattle off probably half a dozen each of you, and you need to learn how to do this stuff to remain competitive. Um, Now, I mentioned working at home as an advantage, right? You don't have to commute, but the flip side is you can't get away from work because it's right there. I have a gorgeous office. It is 16 by 30. I have 7-foot tall mahogany bookshelves all along one wall. I have my own kitchenette. I have a small refrigerator, which is full of diet soda and sparkling water. I have my very own bathroom right over there. I have furniture, and as you can see, I have art all over my walls. This is just fabulous. And yet I'm down here 12, 14 hours a day. When I'm not upstairs cooking or cleaning, doing things like that, or baking, I'm down here, whether or not I'm actually working or something, or just playing on the computer, I'm down here. I live down here. So you can't get away from work. It's all right there. There is the variability of work. With contracts lasting from maybe a few weeks for little tiny, can you come in and do this piece, to a year or more, your professional life is continually fluctuating. And even giving people a number where they can reach you during the days can be tough. So some places do not let you take cell calls in the office for security reasons. Um, I had a contract not that long ago where cell phones were not allowed at the desk, which made taking calls kind of hard. Loneliness. As a contractor, there you are. You are in your home office. You are comfortable. You have you have great tea. You have coffee. You have animals. You have diet soda, and the bathroom is like 15 feet away. And there's music going. What could be better? Well, you're cranking out your wonderful billable results, and your pets, while they are adoring things, may not be long on conversation, and you can suffer from loneliness surprisingly easy. Um, this is where a good circle of friends and professional organizations will come into play. Um, Paying for everything. I kind of touched on this before. If you want a Herman Miller Aeron chair, the very best chair you can get, bought one of them, and I'll tell you how good it is. I bought this used in 2003. It's still fine, and it's still wonderfully comfortable. Um, so amortizing what that's like $25 a year that it worked out to, for a really good office chair. That's a heck of a deal. You have to pay for it. You want a new computer? I bought my first new computer in 9 years, a couple of years ago, and it is basically a server. I have 128 gigs of RAM. It reboots in about 45 seconds from start. And it's like, and I've got uh, 22 terabytes of storage on it, which is where all the cartoons and DVDs go, I might add. So I paid money for that out of my own pocket, and I paid to have support on it. You want the latest copy of Word or FrameMaker? You can buy them. Everything you use in your business, starting with pens that you had to pay for because you didn't find the ones you liked at a conference, all the way up to really good monitors, all of that is something that comes out of your pocket. This is all deductible, but you only get a small percentage of that back, and it's not going to happen until after next April. Fiscal responsibility. If you have not learned to be fiscally responsible, you will have problems. You frequently need to file quarterly city, state, and federal taxes. You need to account for every dime you spend on or by the business. And you have to make sure not to spend all the money that's come in without making allowances for necessary business expenses and taxes. Um, you may want to consider a good bookkeeper at this point in your life, or somebody who can give you some advice on doing things on your own. As I mentioned, touched on, you have to provide your own hardware support. Like I said, my computer, which better not blue screen on me, has been blue screening. And I have an idea of what I need to do, but I've reached all of the end of my own expertise. I need to hire a friend of mine who does hardware support. He built the computer, as a matter of fact. Have him come in and see if he can diagnose it so it stops gorping out on me. Um, but I have to pay for that. I have to spend time on that. I don't just call the tech support line and say, send a guy with a toolbox. There is as well a need for self-discipline. About 35 years ago, I was doing a speech for the ITCC, and I said, I work for myself, but my boss is still an asshole. You need to make sure that your nose is to the grindstone when it should be. You have to be disciplined about getting things done and not slack off, not play the games on your cell phone, because your employability now and in the future is a function of your immediate performance. So you need to be careful about that. And I have fairly bad ADHD, and it can be a challenge. It can be really a challenge. Plus the fact when you're at your computer, when you're doing all of this stuff, you have all the internet in the world available to you and talking, and it's like, and there's never a minute that goes by without the sound of look something up. You could find out about, and all of this stuff. No, you need to know better than to do that. Um, the last thing I would like to mention is that as a freelancer, you don't see people at their best. There's a rule of thumb. Nobody ever hires a freelancer because they're having a nice day and they want to share it. They hire freelancers because they've gotten their butts in a crack and they need somebody to help bail them out. Even if it's only, I did not plan well enough one way or another, or I didn't budget well enough, perhaps, to hire the writers I needed. So I need somebody to come in now and bail me out. That's the best picture, usually. The worst picture is far, far worse. So it is a rare day for you to be hired as a freelancer and see a good situation. It'll be a situation. There may be wonderful people. You may get to meet wonderful people. And you may get to do very, very fascinating things. All of these things can be true, but you don't get to work for the best companies as a rule. So the summary of all of the pluses of freelancing is flexibility. You get to do what you want, when you want, how you want, and not infrequently where you want. The summary of the minuses is risk. Being a freelance writer is a lot like being an actor. You can starve to death in the pursuit of your chosen career. All right, so as part of this, I want you to think about what is most important to you in a job. For example, and I think that you'll possibly snicker, some people do not like to commute. I do not like to commute. I hate commuting. And commuting in the greater Seattle area really means something. Other people don't mind commuting at all. I do not understand them, but they hate working overtime. My own preference happens to be no commuting, but I don't mind working long hours. I'll be working tonight till midnight, getting something done. I've always been more nocturnal than diurnal, and so it's kind of nice. But some people really like not having to set an alarm clock. For about 15 years, I never set an alarm clock because I was busy freelancing and I was writing books, which is all on your own time. So I just go to bed when I was tired, wake up when I was done, go downstairs, bang the keys for another 12 hours. And I can think of no worse situation than having to commute somewhere half an hour away. Everywhere is half an hour away from where I live, at best, by 6:30 every morning. It's like just KMN. All right, so that's freelancing. Let's talk about captivity. In captivity, the first and foremost advantage is stability. Being captive is not all bad. It can be pretty good. As a captive, you generally have a pretty good idea of what you're going to be doing and approximately when. Benefits. There will be benefits coming out your ears. There will be vacation, sick leave, holidays, all the rest. There's coffee in the office, not necessarily good coffee, but free coffee. Let me show you a typical list of benefits. See that? Captives get all or most of these. We will take this for granted, as you'll appreciate, but no, all of this stuff comes in, as I mentioned: holidays, vacation, sick leave, bereavement leave, maternity and paternity leave. On a project that I'm working on right now, the project manager he and his wife just had their second baby. He's off on paternity leave till the middle of May. And it's like, sure, you can do that as a freelancer. You just won't get paid for 3 months. Drug rehab leave. Hopefully nobody needs this, but it's there. Insurance. A lot of people are tied to their captive jobs because they have health insurance, and that it would be extortionately expensive to get it elsewhere, at least speaking in the USA. I was talking to somebody about moving to Portugal a little less than a month ago, and he was telling me about, and I asked about health insurance. I said, I know that if I move to somewhere in the EU, I would not qualify for health insurance immediately, the state health insurance. But my own policies, Medicare, Blue Cross Blue Shield, would not cover me as a resident of a foreign country. So I'd need a bridge policy. And so he said, and there was a lot of hemming and hawing. He said, well, yes, you'd need to get a bridge policy for the year when you weren't covered. And it would, it probably cost you near the top of the scale. And he's looking at me in the Zoom call and seeing all of the white hair and so forth. And he says, and based on your age and your likely health condition, it would be Hall, pause, $100 a month. And I snorted. And he misinterpreted that. He thought that I was upset. And he said, that's like $1,200 a year. And I explained that Maryland's Blue Cross Blue Shield had just sent a couple of months ago an announcement that it was going to cost us, that the increase in what we spent, just for the health insurance, not including the, vision and dental and the deductibles and everything else, that the increase was going to be $250 a month for the both of us. So it's like, kind of, I sneer at $100 a month to cover everything, including prescriptions. It's like, yeah, sign me up. Stock options. A lot of companies will give you the standard stock option is like 15% off the face price of the stock on an ESPP, an employee stock purchase plan, and you can invest your money, a deduction out of your paycheck, and get a bunch of stock. Performance bonuses. A lot of places do that. 401k and matching funds. Phones. Copies, office supplies, furniture, educational benefits, going to conferences, paying for professional dues, buying magazine subscriptions, computer hardware and software. Yes, of course. Profit sharing. Some places do, raises, we might hope, but yes, they're there. Professional organization dues, I kind of covered. Unions. Some places you're going to be unionized, and this is, in my opinion, a good thing. conferences, continuing education classes. Like, let's say you wanted to go pick up skills at the local community college or the like, you can go do that on their nickel. Magazines and book your FICA taxes. That is they pay for a good portion of your Social Security contribution, about 7.15%, I think it is. And then you match that, of course, but they're paying for a chunk of it. As a self-employed person, you spend roughly 12.3% of every dollar not otherwise, affected by deductions and expenses on your Schedule C in your tax form. You're going to be spending a portion of your income on funding your Social Security. There will be beer bashes and holiday parties. Not a big deal, but that's something. Matching charity donations. I sent friends of mine who have charity a couple of years running, $500 of my own money, and then the company I was working at, SAP at the time, matched it. So they got $1,000, things like that. You can get discounts on merchandise occasionally, like Xfinity has some deals, I know, if you work for them. Coffee and Nosh of various kinds. Some companies have a credit union. There is some value in some places to seniority. If you've been at the company 15 years, you may have some bulk. And also, if you've been at a company, when I was working at SAP, one of the things I liked about it, there were many things I liked about it. They paid me an awful lot of money for one thing. They started me, the day I signed up, I got 4 weeks of vacation a year. I liked that a lot. And if I had been with them a full 5 years, I worked for them as a captive for 3 years and 2 years before that as a contractor, but it didn't carry over. If I'd worked for them 5 years, I'd be getting 6 weeks of vacation a year. Twist my arm harder. Um, Personal leave, SAP, for example, had an in-service day every quarter. You could say, I'm taking an in-service day and then go off and work for some volunteer or nonprofit organization just to make the world a better place. On-site recreation and gym facilities. Some companies do, a lot of companies don't. Gym memberships, though, most of them will cover. Childcare, again, some of them will. And parking and bus passes or a company car van pool, things like that. And there are lots more, but these are the ones I can think of right off the top. That's a lot. Generally speaking, this is equal to approximately 50% of your gross salary when you start thinking about this. And while you may not care about some of this, like you may not care to go to company wingdings because you don't want to hang out with these people any more than you gotta, but nonetheless, it's there. It should be considered a benefit. Um, and I didn't mention free tech support in there, but there's also soft things like social interaction. When you work with people full time, you get a number of social perks that you don't normally have as a freelancer, and you get to know the people and what to expect of them. Um, there's also the idea of regular wages. You know when you're getting a paycheck. You never have to chase down a client to get paid. That doesn't happen nearly so often as people worry about, but it does happen. I have had this happen. Um, uh, Supplies, software, computers, free tech support, things like that. All of this, that has a lot to recommend it too. Okay, so there are pros to working captive, and it's a good list as well, roughly equivalent in bulk to being a freelancer. So we all know that there are disadvantages to working captive. You just have to have read Dilbert to see that there are disadvantages to working captive, or you just have to actually gotten out there and worked a white collar job. You know what the disadvantages are. My favorite number one disadvantage is you have to go to work every day. They actually have this expectation that you'll show up. That's really narrow an attitude on their part, in my opinion, but there you have it. You also usually can't sleep late, and you have to do what they tell you to. Now, you'll have some latitude on your assignments, but generally speaking, they're going to say, you're going to do X. How you feel about it is not the hot issue. Um, so the summary of captivity, the good and the bad. The good part is security, that you are reasonably secure. Now, let's talk a side note for that right now. Um, there are many layoffs and or even the company going out of business. I've had several companies go out of business out from under me. Um, it's kind of strange, but it happens. I worked at one company in from 2014 to 2016, and it was clear they were going out of business. But the year that they laid me off and my staff, um, they went from 500 people to 250, and they were hiring as fast as they could to replace them. And these people would stick around for 2, 3 months, say, God, this place is a pest hole, and they would leave. So they literally had greater than 100% turnover in a single year, which actually takes talent. They're long gone now. As a matter of fact, I worked at a company the beginning of last year, which job lasted about 5 months, and then they and I parted ways. They're a small company and they really don't know what they're doing. And there's a phrase that I use that you may want to adopt for some of these places, um, which is, it's a company with a great future behind it. So no, they're going out of business. It happens a lot. Um, so you have the advantage of a certain amount of security. The contract is nominally not going to end. You're going to keep going. The bad part of captivity is stagnation. Um, if you stay at a place too long, there will be nothing new. You will not grow. You'll just be doing the same job over and over. There's another phrase that I and many people use frequently, which is, they don't have 15 years experience. They have 1 year's experience 15 times over. That's being stagnant. For me, I have felt that moving around from place to place, doing a lot of contracts, has been invigorating because I have learned all kinds of things about what I might be doing, how I like to do it, and who and what I like to do it for. So when you say the bad part of captivity is stagnation, you could say it's really, well, a captivity. You're sort of in a cage. You don't have a heck of a lot of latitude in your work life. All right. So those are the pluses and minuses of freelance and captive. Which one is better? And the answer is this: it really depends on what you want and what's available to you. Um, there is no reason you can't try both. Um, right now, I get called by recruiters a lot because they like my LinkedIn profile. So I've gotten called by recruiters and they say, you know, I have this job, and sometimes it's captive and sometimes it's contract. And there's no reason I can't do one or the other. I'm currently working contract, as I say. It might be nice working captive, but if somebody came in with a contract, like I say, I've got one right now, looking at working at Disney, doing something very interesting um, in the way of regulatory documentation that will pay $85 an hour. And believe you me, I can hang out with you a lot for $85 an hour. That's a ton of money. $170,000 a year base. Yes. Um, the idea of make hay while the sun shines. It's like whatever comes in, give it a whirl. Um, all right. Do you want to try freelancing? If you're currently a captive somewhere, you can try moonlighting to see if you can like it, if you like it, and if you can cut it. Now I said here, use the SDC. I didn't manage to edit every SDC reference out. Um, um, use the professional organizations you've got to network with other freelancers and with other captives. Networking is always a good idea. Um, I wrote a recruiting letter for the SDC in 2006 that applied to them, but it also applies to other professional organizations as well. I said to this letter, the SDC had swapped mailing lists with the American Medical Writers Association, and then they were sending, letters to each other's membership saying, you're a member there, you should try being a member here as well. And so my recruiting letter started out by saying I'd been in this business for like, let's see, 1984, like 25 years roughly. Um, I've been in the business about 25 years, and I said hanging out in the SDC had given me an additional $1 million that I would not have made any other way. And I said, and that is why we're doing this. We are not in this business for our health. We're here to make money and have fun. Um, and this is what networking will do for you. Professional organizations of all kinds, and I will mention a few, will do this for you. Make sure in the process that you have the support for what you're doing of your significant other. And I can tell you a story. It's like in, oh gosh, a little more than 30 years ago, um, my then wife was said, I'm going to do the bills. How much money are we getting this month? And I thought about it and said, I think we're going to be making, I should be making about $7,800. This is in 1993. That's a buttload of money. And she said, great. When is it coming in? I said, I don't know. She said, what do you mean you don't know? I said, well, this chunk is with this client and they tend to pay pretty quickly. And then this chunk is with another client and, they'll probably pay by the end of the month. And this chunk is with this company out of Schaumburg, Illinois. And I don't know what their billing cycle is, but I've been told it could be as much as 60 days. And she's going, crap, you know, and she would get very exercised over the fact that the money was not regular and predictable. For me, I knew the money was coming in. I just didn't know when. So some people don't like this idea. They are not flexible enough to deal with it. But the job is whatever you're doing, it's going to be hard enough without being nipped at all the time for money. And you should keep an eye on the money. That keeps the roof over your head, the cats fed, and the cable TV turned on. Reevaluate your desires every so often. You may have been going along for 5 years being a captive, and you may start feeling kind of like cramped around the shoulders mentally, and you go, I need more. Maybe I'll try being a freelancer, or maybe I'll try going the other way, being a captive, not worrying about marketing myself all the time, things like that. Where's my mouse? There we go. How much money should you make? When you add in all the benefits, as I mentioned, you're going to be getting about half again as much as a captive. The rule of thumb is largely take your annual salary, knock 3 zeros off the end. That's your hourly rate. Now, I did this quite a while ago, and this is actually not such a good metric anymore, because we used to be getting, like 30, 40, 50 grand a year. Now, we're, as for senior technical writers, it's usually closer to 100,000, and depending, even substantially more. And nobody will pay you $100 an hour. It just doesn't happen. So plus the fact that there are some economies of scale. So I would say take your annual salary, if it's like 50 grand a year, knock the 3 zeros off, and then divide it by 2/3. So take a third off. That if you're making 50 grand a year, you'd probably be making, like 35 to 40 bucks an hour minimum, because of all of the expenses and so forth. And that will be generally a 1099 wage. That is one that does not get taxes taken out. For W-2 wages, which is the same thing captives do, like you've signed up with an agency like a CODIS or Beacon Hill Staffing or any of the zillion others, and the salary, they will pay you a W-2 salary with the taxes taken out and things like that. And you don't have to worry about taking the taxes out or budgeting for it. And then they farm you out to the company. I am currently working for Baxter through a company called a CODIS. And so my employer is technically a CODIS. And that's who my W-2 at the end of the year comes from. But a CODIS farms me out on contract to Baxter. And so Baxter is my employer. They're the ones telling me what to do and how to do it and so forth. Let's see. Taxes, speaking of taxes. Taxes are going to be your biggest problem at first. Now, I've got this a little more towards a 1099 income, corp to corp, as it's now known, or B2B, business to business. And when you say, I charge $60 an hour, let's pulling a number out of the air, and they say, great, and so you work 40 hours a week for like 4 weeks. So that's 160 hours. So they'll pay you 160 hours worth of money, and there will not be a dime taken out of it for taxes. You are responsible and accountable for that money, because at the end of the year, when you are doing, that year's taxes, you'll look at it and you'll fill out the Schedule C, which is what all self-employed people do. You'll fill out your Schedule C, and you will go, holy crud, I didn't save any money out of this for taxes, and I now have to come up with $23,000 to pay the government. This is not fun. Don't do this. So you want to set money aside. You can invest it if you like, but right now we are, in my strong opinion, we are headed for a major depression. You don't want to stick money in the market. You want to keep it out of the market at the moment. But you do need to save bucks towards your taxes. You need to budget for state taxes too, if you have them. Washington does not. I think Texas does not. Some states don't. Keep every receipt, no matter how trivial. Stick it in a folder, You should also buy an IRA and invest in it. You can fine tune all of this in a year or two. It's just do these things and you'll probably be okay. And then when you learn more, you'll be able to do a lot of things that you didn't know how to do before. Now, give me just a second, please. I need to find something here. And we're doing well for time. There we go. I'm about to wrap up. Let me ask. No, let's go ahead. We'll hold the questions till the end, actually, but you can ask me all kinds of things. Summary. Freelancing is invigorating. Captivity is security. I like both of these things. I will jump back and forth, both because of what's available and also just because I like to change. You should definitely try each of them and see if you like one better than the other. But the choice at the bottom line is kind of yours. You'll make a living at both of them, almost certainly. So if you're more of an introvert, by the way, I will say this much. If you're more of an introvert, chances are high that you will like being a captive more than a freelancer, because being a freelancer, you have to put yourself out there. You have to discipline yourself. You have to market yourself. You have to talk to people. And, I took my wife to the SDC conference in 2001. I was getting my associate fellow. And I really wanted her there for that. We had just been dating for a year. We weren't even married yet. And and she met technical writers, God help us. And she was appalled. And 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 there was a running theme that conference of, why do you hang out with these people? And I told her the old joke about, how do you tell if a technical writer is an extrovert? They'll look at your shoes when they're talking to you. And so this all came to a head at the SGC, the honors reception, where all the current and past um, associate fellows and fellows would get together and schmooze prior to the awards banquet. And there was somebody there who just had no social skills and was unaware of it, and was and had been unintentionally rude to Marilyn a few days before, and Marilyn did not like it. Was utterly unaware that she had. And we bumped into her again. And she was once again rude to Marilyn. Marilyn was just furious. And she says, let's go. I go, okay, let me wrap up. So we're walking down the hall to the elevator, and I can hear this crackling noise coming from her. And she and a lot more along the theme of, why do you hang out with these people? And I finally says, okay, dear, let's get this straight. These are my people. They're not good people, but they're my people. So, you know, um, I like all of this stuff. I really do. It's fun. Now, I have a few tips for people who want to not only be freelance, but also want to be better technical communicators, regardless of the venue you're working in. These are very good for freelancing skills. And I say as much, but I really need to reevaluate this slide, because these are the books that are on my recommended reading list for everybody. And I can see how long it's been since I did this. So the first is The Secrets of Consulting by Jerry Weinberg. And this is an amazing and powerful book. Uh, and he talks about being a consultant, and most of these rules are good. And he uses parables and stories and even jokes to get all of the stuff across. One of my favorite examples of how well this stuff sticks, it's been decades since I read it, is what he called Rudy's rutabaga rule. And Jerry says, when he was like a 14-year-old kid, he was a box boy in a grocery, and he said one day to Rudy, this big old guy who managed the vegetables, he said, um, I I noticed nobody ever buys the rutabagas. And Rudy is going, and he says, and we could use the space for something else. And and Rudy's going, yeah. And so Jerry thinks that he's getting a positive reception, and he just kind of rattles on for a bit. And Rudy says, hmm. And he grabs a box, and this one big hand, he just sort of swipes this whole thing of rutabagas into the box, pulls the box up and says, okay, kid, now what? And therein was Rudy's rutabaga rule, which is, when you solve your number one problem, your number two problem gets a promotion. And all of these things kind of stick with me, and they will with you too. Peopleware, and the reason I know this has been a while is Peopleware is now on its third edition and has been for quite a while. Peopleware is a book about managing high-tech people and projects, and it is what I would like to call a seditious book. Chapter 7 is about facilities managers, and keeping your office orderly. And the chapter is entitled The Furniture Police. And for those of you who've had occasion to work in a corporate environment with like cubes and shit like that, yeah, The Furniture Police. This is really good. A Whack on the Side of the Head by Roger von Eck is about creativity and breaking free of things. Up the Organization, written in 1963 by Robert Townsend, the man who ran Avis and changed it from a money-losing corporation to the second biggest rental car firm in the world. Clutter's Last Stand by Don Aslett is a fabulous book about how clutter is not just stuff. Clutter robs you of time and your life and helps and how to get rid of it. And it's like lots and lots of tips, and it works very well. The Richest Man in Babylon is everything you need to know on the basics of investing and being secure. It only has about 4 messages, but he keeps telling them over and over and over in different ways. And that is available as a PDF for download on the web. You just have to look for it. And The Time Trap. I felt that I'd gotten most of the book in the first few chapters, but nonetheless, this is a good book for being more efficient. And with that, I am going to say thank you very much. You're welcome to get a hold of me. My website is currently down while I get a new host, and I'm busy with other things, so it's going to be a little while. Sooner or later, you'll be able to go back to hedtke.com. Has anybody got any questions?
And since we've gotten to the question part, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. So those of you watching the recording, thank you for joining us.